coming off all of the activity of Friday, certainly come to a quiet day on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening Saturday of Holy Week?
Well, as far as we know from Jesus' disciple standpoint, nothing. There's no recorded speeches most likely they're in hiding. I mean, that's where we kind of find them after Sunday. They're in rooms that are locked, so they're probably hiding, which, again, makes sense. Their leader had just been violently killed, arrested. So, yeah. So that's where they are. But there is some activity from Jesus' opponents that's very interesting, I think. Matthew 27, the next day, the chief priests go to Pilate again, and they say, "Sir, we remembered how that impostor said while he was alive, 'After 3 days I will rise.'" So they they had been listening. Therefore, they wanted to make the tomb very secure. And then they say it this way: "Therefore, order the tomb to be made secure until the third day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell the people, 'He has risen from the dead,' and the last fraud will be worse than the first." So they're obviously saying he's a fraud. He's not. He wasn't really the king who he said he was. Right. He wasn't really a faithful representative of God. He was a fraud. And the disciples are going to go steal the body. And so sealing the tomb with a stone was a common practice to prevent animals from getting in to eat the body or whatever. So to make it more secure wasn't just the stone, it was also the guards. So they're basically what the Pharisees were asking for was a 3-day guard on the tomb. And then presumably after that, if they went and took the body after that, it would be very easy to falsify.
Right.
Like, well, no, he said he was going to do this within 3 days.
Right.
And so that was the plan of what was going on there. So they, and it's interesting too. There's that accusation that people make. Well, the first century people were, they were more simple-minded. The Enlightenment hadn't happened. They didn't understand the scientific world and that we live in now, and they were more prone to believe in resurrections. These people were not expecting Jesus to rise from the dead, actually.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, again, I think they got a little seed of doubt in their mind. I mean, they were there in the garden when they got blown over. They had seen these miracles, and so maybe they were doubting their doubt about his resurrection. But, again, these people were, in a sense, sane, rational people, knowing that dead people don't rise from the dead. They were just trying to protect from any type of fraud. They weren't actually expecting a resurrection. They were just thinking his disciples would come in and make up a story, which is so funny that that's the main argument against believing in the resurrection today, is that, it would be a made-up story. And that was happening. That is nothing new. That was happening from the very word go of this whole Jesus movement resurrection thing. So,
yeah, there's an interesting thing that God does, and also, as we see as a human, Jesus do with like rest and dead space.
Yeah.
You would think
Dead Space,
Jesus,
good one.
Well, yeah, I guess unintentional.
Yeah.
You would think with just being on the earth, 30, 33 years, that Jesus, it's almost like every moment would be recorded and every moment would be busy.
Yeah. And
there's so much like rest, there's so much quiet, there's periods of solitude, and then even here, it would have been just as much of a demonstration of his power and authority if he comes right off the cross, pronounced dead, and then just, the crowds are already there. I mean, what a, what we would think would be an amazing spectacle, but, just lying in the grave for a whole day.
Yep.
And, you go back to another week. I mean, there's not many weeks in the Bible that are recorded. I mean, there's two really famous ones, Creation and Holy Week.
And this week, yeah.
And both of those, literally nothing is happening on Saturday. I mean, I don't know, it's technically Saturday, but, the sixth day of the week, or
seventh day.
The seventh day of the week, for us, we process it to be the sixth. God rests in creation, certainly could have kept working or spaced it out so that he was working all 7 days, but intentionally chooses to take this day off, and certainly the same in Holy Week as well. And so just something that's interesting to note, as he as God brings about initial creation and then new creation involving a day of silence and rest from his work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a parallel going on, and there's definitely something instructive about that. I mean, the parallel, as we noted yesterday and Friday, Yahweh finished his work of creation on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no accident that Jesus cries out, "It is finished," on Friday, because now there's this parallel movement going on between the work of creation and the work of redemption / new creation. Mm-hmm. And then as Yahweh rested on Saturday, now here's Jesus, who has identified himself as Yahweh on Friday, is resting in the tomb. And this reminds me of Jonah, actually, too. We had said that the fish was male, and then he got described as female in the Jonah story, because when Jonah got in the belly, in the womb, the fish was female. So what appeared to be Jonah's tomb turned into his womb, which that was foreshadowing for Jesus, the same thing. What appears to be his tomb actually becomes the womb. Death, it's like he's in the belly of death. He's in death and Hades on this day, on Saturday. And, there's some theological discussion about, does Jesus descend into Hades? And, for me, I actually think that is the case, and that's not for this discussion, but he's in the belly of death, and that belly becomes a womb, and there's going to be resurrection, new life the next day. And so, so Saturday is a quiet day, but it also reminds us of the finished work of God, and that we can rest, and that that's actually one of his designs for us. And so here's Jesus, in a sense, he's dead, but he's, in a sense, just resting. He's waiting for the rebirth of his own human life, and then the rebirth of the world when he rises from the dead at dawn on now the first day of the week. Yeah. So that Saturday is Jesus's opponents, trying in vain to protect the grave and to protect the narrative and all these other things. And again, we've just been illustrating time after time, they are not in control. Everything they do is futile. And everything Jesus is doing is leading to this fruitful end of new creation and new life, which will happen in the morning.
Even something like guarding a dead body.
Yeah.
Which is, can almost, it's used as a joke, even like in basketball, like you can't guard a graveyard kind of thing.
Yeah.
They literally cannot even guard a dead body.
Exactly. And it's like, you think about it, it's like, well, they sent their soldiers, and Jesus was like, well, I'll send mine. Yeah. And obviously the angels were, they either scared off or whatever they did to the Roman guards. And so, so Saturday, he's resting, the work is finished, and we are awaiting the rebirth of the world, really, that next morning.